Last week was Halloween, and we're in the mood for spooky games. Welcome to the 4th episode of the Zac and Tav Podcast.
Hi.
Today we're going to talk about what horror in video games is for us, and some of the games that have spooky elements in them that we played.
When we think about horror games, we usually think about the Resident Evil series or games like Silent Hill. I found that horror is actually a very core element of a lot of video games outside of the horror game genre.
For sure.
And it's in some of our favorite games as well. To me, horror or creepiness in games often comes with the feeling of being alone, of not knowing what will come next. And I think this is something that comes up in a lot of games.
Oh, yeah.
Or also, of course, jump scares, which are very common in a lot of video games, not just horror games, but also action games and even some story games or RPG games. For you, Zach, do you remember the first time when you were afraid or scared while playing a video game?
Yeah, I think there were two very distinctive games I can remember that were really my earliest memories with spooky games. One was Diablo 1. I played that with you together, and it was always really late, and the music was really scary. There were so many monsters, but it was at the same time so fun that I still wanted to stay on the game. It was really, really creepy, and I got nightmares from it, but I still loved it so much that we played it through together. That was
That's
really
true,
fun.
yeah. I wanted to turn it off since you were so little, but I I had to keep playing since you were like, no, don't turn it off, Dad. I want to see what happens next.
It was really fun. And it was this music you hear in the town.
The Tristram theme.
The Tristram
The famous
theme.
guitar theme.
That is really great, and when I hear it today, I'm still a little bit traumatized from that time back then. It was just so frightening.
What about the other game?
That was The Dig from LucasArts that we only played like halfway or something, but
I played it through actually, but
Yeah.
that was after a while.
oh, okay, yeah. No, because I think I told you at some point that I didn't want to continue playing that anymore.
That's
because,
true.
Because it was so creepy and really frightening for me as a 9-year-old.
So what was so creepy about The Dig? Just for context, The Dig is an old LucasArts action adventure, which is what they call these point-and-click games where you went around the world, you usually controlled one character, and you pick up items, combine them, and usually they are story-driven games where you have to find the solution to keep going. And this was one of the rare games where you could also, under some circumstances, die, because in most of the LucasArts games, you could not die. But in this game, you could.
It was also that The Dig was actually a script for a movie from Steven Spielberg. And
Yes.
he presented that to his executives, and they were just saying this is nothing that could be mass marketed.
No, I think they actually said it was too expensive. They could not make it.
Or
it
it
was
was
too ambitious. They ran the numbers and they were basically like, this is crazy. We could do this, but it would cost a lot of money and we're not sure if we could make it back with this story.
Earn it back, yeah.
Yeah. It's a cinematic game. The short version is there is an asteroid. It's going to hit Earth and destroy all life on Earth. So a small team has to go and put a nuclear fuse on the asteroid and make it change its course by detonating the nuclear fuse on the asteroid. But then the asteroid is not destroyed or shattered, but instead they realize that there is something inside the asteroid, and what they find is the teleporter that takes them to a completely different alien world. And this all happens, and the world is basically an island, and it's like a dig because you can't get out, and it's surrounded by water. And then you're on this alien world, and you have to find a way home, and you end up like uncovering the secrets of this space civilization. But what did you find so creepy about that game?
You're just so alone and can't get really any help. And then there's this very core gameplay element where there's these stones. When the characters eat them,
They use them.
Or they use them.
The crystals, you mean, the green ones?
Yeah, these green crystals. They can use them when they have already died to be born anew as something.
Yeah, they're life crystals.
They're life crystals, but once you use them for somebody, you're like a totally different person.
Exactly. There is a main character in the story that gets resurrected, and after he's resurrected by these life crystals, he changes completely and is not himself anymore. All he thinks about is eternal life and using these crystals, and he becomes addicted to them, basically. Like, they give him eternal life, but it ends up kind of costing his soul. Yeah.
It's very interesting because there's also this
but it's funny.
Civilization that lived there at some point. And there's this one guy, they imprisoned him. I think he was maybe the founder of those life crystals or something.
One of the engineers.
One of the engineers. And they imprisoned him to warn everybody that comes to that island that they shouldn't use them.
Yes, exactly.
And he's stuck there eternally.
It's a game that I can fully recommend. I played it since I was a teenager, and it was one of the very special games that LucasArts made in the 90s. Interesting that you bring it up when you talk about creepy games, because you already said, even without being a horror game, this is obviously like an action adventure that has a story, but there are elements in a lot of games that make them creepy, even though they're not distinctively like horror games themselves. And for the Dig, as you said, it's this feeling of being isolated. You're alone and you don't have any possibility of getting back. A lot of games work with this. Like, there are a lot of games where you're all on your own in environments and you're kind of on your own. Because of that, it's this element of helplessness also, right?
Yeah, like when the other crewmate tells me like, "Oh, when I die, you should never give me that crystal," and things like that. It's very decision driven and really interesting.
So the theme of death is also something that is very creepy in a lot of video games, and is in a lot of video games as well. Now, Diablo 1 especially is a very different game, right? You are in this village, this town, and then you have to go down into the dungeon. You are on a rescue mission, but you end up killing a lot of monsters, and you slay a lot of skeletons and zombies and demons and get a lot of treasure and become stronger. Why is Diablo for you a game that you feel is so creepy and dark?
Well, I mean, the setting is very dark, of course. There's this eternal evil that's killing everybody, and you have to find its source. But it's really, with this game, with Diablo, it's mostly the vibe of, like, of course you're killing demons and skeletons and stuff like that, and walking to hell in this church, in this dungeon.
Mm-hmm. You end up delving deeper and deeper. The first layer is like the church cathedral, and then you're in the catacombs, then you're in the cave level, and then you're in hell.
At some point,
At some point, the last few levels.
Which is really hard. But
it's
also, the game is really well done because you find different equipments and weapons and armor that have different stats and different abilities. You can upgrade you can also find scrolls to get new spells and different upgrades that make you more powerful and defeat more powerful enemies too. And every time you go up to the town, where you can also do a lot of different things, it just really gives you this vibe
repair
of
your equipment.
Yeah, and like it just really gives you this vibe of everybody's really desperate and this is the end. So it's really just the whole atmosphere is extremely creepy.
I would say so as well. Like Diablo 1, apart from being the originator of kind of the looter shooter or hack and slash treasure hunting genre that is so popular nowadays, interestingly enough, the other side of the coin, on the one hand, you play a character who only gets stronger as he delves deeper into the dungeon, but the horrors in the dungeon also get worse and worse, right? So even though you get stronger, you have an easier time killing these demons. At the same time, the atmosphere, the music, and everything works very well together so that you have this feeling, okay, this is a step further now, this is getting more dangerous. Do you remember any certain parts from Diablo 1 that you found very creepy? Like, obviously, the town of Tristram is very desolate. There are only a few people. When you talk to them, they all sound very horrified by what has been going on. Like, people, townsfolk have been captured and taken to the cathedral. You find the traumatized drunk, the boy with a peg leg who has lost one leg to one of the demons. The healer talks about the poisoned people and the things that are getting worse and worse in that village. And at the same time, you have the music. The soundtrack is made by Matt Uelmen, and he has a very strong main theme with a guitar in town. And then when you go into the dungeon, the sound is mostly just some strings and some guitar and a lot of percussion. And it gives you this ominous feeling of, oh, I'm in the crypts now. All these skeletons are rising to fight me.
No, it's really, really well done. Just how immersed you feel too.
Yes, absolutely. Immersion is very important. When you have to be immersed in a game if you are to feel creeped out, right? And I think a lot of horror games do this very well. That they give you the feeling, oh, you're invested in this story. They give you something, a reason why you're invested in this world. Sometimes it's your character, some personal connection to what has happened. Sometimes you're taken away, or this is one of your friends that is there, but you just can't reach them and stuff like that.
Yeah, or being alone and these things.
What about Diablo? Do you remember any certain part of the game where you were like, oh no, what's happening?
Well, I remember, obviously, the town, as you already said. That was a very creepy element. But also, when there's this one guy, he's called the Butcher. I think in one of the first 3 layers. He is very strong, and once you go in there, you get instantly killed. And you have to be first stronger to be even able to defeat him.
Basically, yeah.
And he was very creepy because I was always like, oh, don't go in this room, Butcher is there, and every time seeing him, it's just, okay, this is a death sentence, pretty much.
Yeah, so, a very iconic moment in video gaming. Like in Diablo, the quests and the game is randomized every time you create a new game. So when you create a new game and you see the bloodied villager outside the church and he talks about this demon, the Butcher with a big cleaver who killed all these people, then you know that the Butcher quest has spawned within your game. It's not always there. But if the villager is there, then the Butcher will also be there. And he's in one of the first layers. And it's iconic because it's a very innocent looking door in the middle of a room where you're like, okay, this must be some kind of chamber. And when you open it, you hear, oh, fresh meat. And then he comes and he's way stronger than you are at this point because you're probably level 4 or 5. And realistically, you need to be level 7, 8 or something and have some better equipment already. Or he just kills you very fast because mostly you cannot get away from him. I think this is also a good thing in video games in general. When you have this feeling, okay, I'm not safe. I have these tools. I can play the game. I can be strong and I can do things. But also, if I do the wrong thing, if I go to the wrong place or I take on the wrong enemy, I can just die. And I think this is a very special feeling in video games in general, where you're like, this guy is just one-shotting me. And I think Diablo games in general have great opportunities to do that, because it's you're mowing down hordes of monsters, and then it's just a little bit too much sometimes. And then you're like, oh wait, no, this combination of monsters, even in Diablo 1, and even more so in other games, you're just getting trounced. Like in Diablo 2, for example, there's one final boss where you're like looking for this tomb, and you're expecting in this tomb to find a great demon. And then there is a different demon there that's very different, because you were looking for a mage, a spellcaster. So you're expecting someone who shoots magic at you or something. And then you find this tomb, and all you hear is looking for Baal. And it's another huge demon who's a colossal monster with huge claws. And he just runs at you, he slows you, and then he eats you, basically. And it's completely different from what you expected. And it's also kind of that factor. You weren't expecting this type of enemy.
Definitely,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, and he's also very, very strong. So most of the times he will kill you when you go in there unprepared.
Yeah. So the last layer, as we were already saying, is hell. And that was also a very creepy element because it had all these humans, these like adventurers that were impaled on different bones and sticks. There was so much blood everywhere. So that was very creepy feeling because everything was also so red, like you would have hell imagined. And there's so much carnage. It really takes you in. It's really creepy.
What about the graphics? Like Diablo 1 has pixel graphics and it's very dark. It has this element where your character is a source of light. You have a light radius and you can only really see well within the light radius.
Well, I mean, I think sometimes it really doesn't matter that much what the graphic it is because the atmosphere and the immersion is just so great that in this case it could have been in 4K and everything and really detailed. Maybe would have made it a little bit creepier, but it wasn't the characters themselves that were like scary for me. That's what I'm trying to say.
But the theme, you mean?
But the theme, yeah. The atmosphere.
I think that is very valid because I wanted to take this as a segue to what you said before when you face the butcher and he's just suddenly appearing from within the door and then he goes fresh meat and he mows you down without much resistance. I feel this element is in one of my favorite games from back in the day, from the original Gothic game, which was a 3D game already. It also had that very same element where if you were walking around in that world, and if you did not have stronger armor or good weapons or haven't leveled up yet, you just faced some crazy enemy like Shadow Walker or a troll or a golem or some very dangerous enemy, even some raptor, just a snapper or something, who would just run up on you and then kill you in one shot. And I think even though this is not exactly a horror, but the feeling that you're not safe in this game world that you are in is very strong and also gives you a very strong sense of fear when you're playing the game, and respect, of course, for the world.
Gothic is a great example because it's just you. Nobody is your friend, really, and you cannot really trust anybody. Everybody in this world is in the same position as you.
Yeah. For context, in the original Gothic game, you're thrown into a prison colony that has been sealed shut by a magical barrier, where wizards have basically made a barrier that allows people to go in, but when they try to get out, they die. So you're stuck in there with a bunch of prisoners. They have to either work for the king or have different plans of getting out. It's an RPG where you are thrown into that world and you have to choose where to go next and how
There's
to escape.
Different teams of different people.
Yeah, there are
groups,
different factions. Exactly.
It's a really, really great game. Also, 100% recommended. They're
Yes.
actually doing a remake now of Gothic.
I will be looking if they can replicate that magic,
Yeah.
where you have this feeling of, oh, I have to be careful. I played the demo and I remember I picked a fight with one of the first characters I met, and he stabbed me with his sword without much hesitation. So I'm sure they will do that as well. Gothic 1 and 2 are on the Switch, actually, in a remastered version. That is a very good port.
Yeah, you played that a lot. I think, didn't you play it through again after you got
No, I played a couple of hours, but I have played Gothic 1 and 2. I've played those games at least 20 times, I think.
Yeah, no, they're really great games, and I was saying the immersion in Diablo is good. In Gothic, it's incredibly well done.
It's the GOAT in terms of immersion. It has this reputation of being a Eurojank game because the graphics were not up to par and the translation was not always perfect, but the German version especially is just one of the best games ever.
Yeah, one of the things they had too back then was voice acting. That was something not many games
No.
had at that time. And Gothic had voice actors for
It was-
like every single character.
I think that was one of the reasons why it took the publishers so long to get it translated into other languages, since the game was fully voice acted. And I'm not sure
Fully.
if they were able to.
Like every single person you meet, and there's so many.
Yeah. Though in the German version you can tell, since a lot of people have the same voice actor.
Yeah.
You can actually tell after a while, oh, okay, this person is the same. Mostly you can't.
I mean, it's the
Voice
job,
actors?
so they know how to
Yeah, exactly.
change the voice a
But
little bit.
For some people you can
the
just
age.
tell. It's just the vibe is different. But yeah, a lot of action games I feel have this element because you can move freely, but that doesn't mean that you should, right? If you go take the wrong turn, you may die. And I think this is a very good thing. I feel like you are playing through Star Wars Outlaws right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an element to that where are you afraid of playing through that game, of going into the wrong area or picking the wrong fight?
But
Are you ever afraid playing that game, Zach?
so with that game, it's a little bit different. I'm afraid that I would get caught by if I get seen. Then they'll alarm each other, and then the whole mission is so much harder. They will follow me, so I'll just restart the save. But that's a different kind of being frightened than in Gothic. In Gothic,
Yeah.
it matters more.
In Gothic, I used to save a lot because Gothic does not have autosave. That was not common back then. So I did a lot of saving and then trying to just make sure, okay, I killed this guy. Now I'm still running away. I'm saving mid-flight and stuff like that.
I do have to say, Star Wars Outlaws also has this element, but it's just different than Gothic.
I think
And Gothic is just the master in that.
for me, playing through Diablo 4 right now, for example, I don't really ever, I died a bunch of times playing with my cousin the other night. I just clicked, okay, resurrect. Nothing much happened. Like in the older Diablo games, when you die, all your equipment falls down on the floor and you have to pick it up back again. Also in Diablo 1.
Yeah.
Diablo 1, the game just ends if you're in single player and you have to reload the game from your last save file, much like in Gothic. And I think with the modern games, the stakes of, oh, I'm making a mistake, I have to be afraid, are very different. For example, the Diablo game series also has the hardcore feature. And
I mean, you're playing Diablo 4 now. How is that with the modern Diablo games?
As I said, I died a bunch of times and I just clicked, okay, resurrect, and then I resurrected in front of the boss and just tried again. And it's not the same feeling, right? Last year I played some World of Warcraft hardcore, actually, with a friend. And I can remember getting that feeling of having respect for the dangers of the world when you're playing hardcore mode, because that way your character is deleted when you die. You only have one life. You were there. You were there when I jumped off the ship. Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, I woke up at like 2 a.m. in the morning, and I don't see my dad. So, well, guess where he is? Playing World of Warcraft. And
classic
hardcore. And you're just doing this travel thing where you're on this ship,
this blip, the Zeppelin.
Yeah, right, the Zeppelin, just riding from one place to the next to save some time. And there's so many other people.
I was in a call with my buddy Adrian as well.
And you were just jumping around and he was saying like, oh, that was close, I almost jumped off. And then a second later you misclicked or something and just straight up jumped off the ship.
Yeah.
You like jinxed it. And you lost your whole 20 hours character.
Yes, that was one of the better moments. I must really admit, this is the element of this hardcore gaming. Baldur's Gate 3, for example, has such a mode as well.
A lot of games have. Also Metroid Dread, actually, I think.
Where you die once and the save file is deleted?
Die once.
Okay, whew. Yeah, so this is one way to get a game to have suspense and make you feel creeped out as well. We also played some GoldenEye 007 on the Nintendo 64, Nintendo Switch Online app recently. And I wanted to ask you, Zach, is that a game where you were afraid while playing it, or were you ever creeped out? Because I remember this one mission where there were so many enemies and then we had to run away while they were all shooting at us
Well,
and
so
escape this.
for context again, like GoldenEye, we were playing through the campaign because there's also a very famous multiplayer that the game consisted of mainly when it released back then on the N64.
It was the game.
It was the game that everybody played, the best really like shooter back then, and. We are playing the campaign, and the objective of the campaign is pretty much kill all the Russians. It's crazy. They like just drop you in different places, and all you have to do is kill Russian soldiers, take over the base.
We had to steal some plans.
Sometimes we had to steal things. Sometimes it's really just take over the base and do something. Not very complex, but it's really fun because it's sometimes pretty hard, and you can also die. Because you were asking if I was scared at some point when playing GoldenEye.
Yes, because I've played through some shooters, and I feel this feeling, like this is the reason why people mostly play shooter games. They can get you anytime. Someone might be around the corner.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The way you play shooters is you always watch your back. Like you go there, you try to take cover, you make sure no one's following you, or if someone is following you, you try to go behind them or something.
I mean, of course, the AI back then wasn't that good.
No, but that's
Anyways,
not what I mean.
I know, yeah. I'm also now in this point at playing this a lot older than I was when I played The Dig or Diablo. It's always really fun, but there's still some moments where you're like, okay, how do I get out here? How do I get to this place? And there's these really strong soldiers that can just pretty much also instantly kill you, and it definitely has quite a lot of tension in the gameplay.
That's the exact word that I was looking for. Shooters are very good at having this inherent tension, since it's always, okay, someone can pop you from anywhere. They might just be there, especially playing against other players. You've been playing some Fortnite in the past year. How do you feel? Like, when does that kick in Fortnite? Because obviously people play that game as well for that reason. But when do you feel that the suspense is getting higher and higher when you're playing Fortnite? Because obviously you're not afraid when playing Fortnite. You just jump into the next game.
But there's a lot of this jump scare element too. Not that there's a monster coming into my screen, but suddenly that I get shot and you have this thing on the screen that you lose life.
Yeah, there's some guy with a banana on his head jumps around on you.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. You can fight with somebody else. You can shoot somebody else. You can just get headshotted from the back and it's over. Like, there's a lot to that, especially because if you're in one of those rounds, you just lose 10 minutes of your time that you could have used somehow else if you would have watched out better. So that's definitely something, but I never feel frightened. But the tension is there, definitely. But I wouldn't count Fortnite at all to spooky games, because it just doesn't have the atmosphere. Look, it's so bright. And I
mean, they could have a theme that would be like a horror theme, but still, it's Fortnite. It would make it feel like a day at the arcade, or you're at a Halloween party or something.
Exactly. It's like it's still a game that is made for kids, and even though you have age ratings and stuff like that because you can shoot other people, it's still the whole art style. It's really made for kids and not really for the horror element.
What about the Zelda series? We talked about the Zelda series in a bit more depth in our last episode. Did you ever feel frightened or creeped out when you were playing Tears of the Kingdom, for example? I mean, they have a whole underground where you can't really see anything. And there's also a mummy,
they had a great opportunity in Tears of the Kingdom, were in the underground.
Is it creepy, though?
Not really, because the tension isn't there. That's exactly the thing.
So there is no monster that just, like a worm that comes and tunnels through the earth and then just swallows you if you go the wrong way or get too close to something.
No, there is enough monsters and enough. The thing is that you can just stand around, and it's like open world Zelda. It's like on the top, just you don't see as much.
Okay.
That's really the difference for Tears of the Kingdom. And in the open world, everything is also so bright, so you don't have really frightness. There is definitely some elements where you're under pressure in the overworld, but also in the underground. But
I can totally see that.
But I also think that the real spooky elements is more in the old Zelda games, like Ocarina of Time.
Yes, well, the older Zelda games, they didn't really freak you out or anything. But I remember when I first played through Ocarina of Time, and you go to the overworld, which is Hyrule Field there, and then the game is made in a way that it takes you exactly the right amount of time that you cannot get there before the sun sets. And when the sun goes down, the drawbridge raises up at Hyrule Castle, and you can't get in. You have to wait until night is over. Mm-hmm. And during the night, skeletons rise up from the ground, much the same way as in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom as well, I think.
Yeah, but they're also there on the day.
Yeah.
It's a difference, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's similar to Minecraft, actually. They also have monsters in the night.
I remember...
And then no tension on the day, but once it turns night, you are a little bit more scared then.
Yeah, in Zelda Ocarina of Time, I remember, there is a point in the game where you take up the Master Sword, and then you become grown-up Link, and what happens next is that you are teleport through time, because you travel through time to a point in the future. And the future in that game is very grim. Like, the castle and the town are empty, everyone are zombies, and people have fled to one village. And for example, you also go to a graveyard. So I remember when I was a kid, that was kind of like the game for me, where I was like, oh, this is really spooky and creepy. But then again, I also played some of the original horror games on PC that people nowadays, I think, would not find as creepy, maybe, because they were very narrative driven. It was scary because everything could kill you, basically, and you had to know what to do in the situation. For example, one of the games I remember playing as a kid at a friend's house was the game Alone in the Dark, where you go to a mansion, I think, and you investigate a murder or something. I cannot remember, since the game was in English, and at the time I couldn't read English that well. I remember there was a monster jumping through the window, and you had to get to the gun in time to shoot it. And this is very much the heritage of games like Resident Evil or Silent Hill that have come after it. Alone in the Dark is kind of a precursor to that. Because we were talking about shooters earlier, like Doom was one of these shooters that I feel like the theme, interestingly enough, Doom is a game. Have you ever seen or played Doom?
I've never played Doom, but I've seen gameplay of it. Like, it's played a lot, even today still. Yes.
It was the first shooter game. And you killed a lot of demons and monsters in that game. It felt more like an arcade game. Yeah, like you weren't really afraid of these monsters. They just came from all sides, and you turned around, and you killed them. You clicked and clicked.
They made games for these magazines back then, the creators of Doom, and then I think I read an article about that, how they were thrown out or something, or they planned a own project which turned out to be Doom in the end. And then they published that themselves, even though that was planned for the magazine originally.
A lot of these games had themes that had evil monsters, and even the more modern Doom games, they're very creepy looking. But since you play this super-powered soldier who just plows through all these monsters, it's not the same suspense as in a game like Diablo. So the game has to feel like they can touch you. Interestingly enough,
similar to Hyrule Warriors, which just released a day ago, where you just fight against so many.
Yeah, no one opponent can be that scary if you just plow through all of them.
All of those Musou games.
Yeah, which is interesting, because this is also where Diablo kind of comes from. And when I think back, in Zelda Ocarina of Time, actually, there were a lot of scary enemies that were very dangerous. Just going to the forest temple, and then 2 wolves would jump out at you. And these 2 wolves, if you weren't careful, they could totally take you. Or just fights against random skeleton warriors.
But that's also the thing what I said before about Diablo. It's really not the people or the monsters not the gameplay that frightens me, more the atmosphere that's scary and spooky.
Absolutely.
Really.
Yeah, we also wanted to talk about... Have you played Luigi's Mansion, for example? Now we're going to talk more about Nintendo games.
Luigi's Mansion, actually, the first game dropped on NSO on the 31st of October on Halloween.
Yeah, the GameCube game,
On
right?
the GameCube game, yeah, for the Switch 2 exclusive Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. I haven't played it yet. What I've heard, this one's a lot more spookier than 3, which was on Nintendo Switch, which I played, and was a really great game. That's one of the games that is still on my bucket list that I should finish, where I'm pretty far, but I'm not finished yet. It's a really fun game, as I was already saying, because there's so many really cool gameplay mechanics with Luigi and just the whole Ghostbusters style, capturing the ghosts, so much treasure you can find. Especially what I really loved about Luigi's Mansion 3 was that there was different layers in the hotel, like floors. You went up one floor after the other, and every floor was just like a different area, and it was really a surprise, and so many more things, and it looked really visually beautiful too, and it was really a lot of fun. Have you played it?
No, I have not played Luigi's Mansion 3, but I have played Luigi's Mansion 2 on the 3DS. And
Dark Moon, yeah.
Yes, and I feel that game was also very charming and very fun. You explored different mansions in that game.
Yeah, that's the odd one out game that everybody is saying, where you're also outside.
You're not just in one mansion, you're also going out. Yeah, exactly. But you do not travel from mansion to mansion. You just get teleported there. But there are different things. Like there is you go on the patio and you also go outside in the
So
the
most
greenhouse.
of people say that, I have never played 1 and 2 personally, but most people say that 3 is the best game of the trilogy, and 1 is the second best game, and 2 is the worst.
I cannot speak to that. Like, what I wanted to ask you in regards to Luigi's Mansion is, do you feel like that is a creepy or spooky game?
I mean, you're very alone, and definitely Luigi is freaked out. He's very frightened. And personally, just because of the art direction of the game, it wasn't spooky for me. It was more fun and goofy kind of spooky game. I guess, especially with Luigi's Mansion 2 and really 1, the whole atmosphere is very different to 3, where 3 is very colorful. 1 and especially 1 is more, okay, you're alone in this mansion and there's all these ghosts that are trying to kill you and you just have to survive.
You actually have to, I think in the first game you have to rescue Mario. The same as in Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yeah.
Also Mario gets captured, right? And in 2, I can't remember exactly what the story point was. I think you also had to rescue someone. You had this Professor Egad who gave you all these gadgets.
Egad is in all of them.
Yeah, Egad is in all of them. He gives you all these gadgets, and I felt like it was a game that had kind of spooky elements, and it had bosses that were big and kind of scary, but it was more of a arcadey game where you were exploring, and because you're also collecting all these ghosts by sucking them in. I never felt like, this is really, I have to be afraid. For a change, I recently started playing Metroid Prime Remastered on Nintendo Switch again, and I played it on normal mode, not on easy mode, and I just died to one of the first space pirates because I couldn't get away in time. I had to reload and go to the beginning of the level again.
Would you say Metroid would also count to the spooky games?
Yeah, well, Metroid is definitely one of the creepy games, because even back to the NES roots and Game Boy roots of the game, like Metroid 1 was very also very isolating, and you had to explore and find out, and enemies were very dangerous. And on Metroid 2 you had that was on the Game Boy, and it was all black and white, and it was very cramped on a small screen. So I would say yes, that was also made you be afraid. And Metroid 3, Super Metroid, is the game that really defined this genre of exploration, but also atmospheric. You see, you go and explore the...
It's one of your favorite games.
Yes, definitely. Because it's probably my favorite game of all time, because in Metroid and Super Metroid you have this element of exploration, but you're also completely on your own, so the only living things you encounter are mostly enemies, and sometimes you also have friendly animals, but most of the time you're on your own. And the only signs you see of other things are signs of struggle. For example, you go to a certain part and then you find a Federation spaceship, and what you find is soldiers that have been killed, and they lie around. Federation, or they're scientists, I think. And then you realize, oh, this is the reason why they were killed off, etc. And you explore more, and you come and you find out why and what happened. And I feel when I played Metroid Dread a couple of years ago, I also felt the same feeling. Like
Dread is also very good in like those Emmy zones, or what they're called.
Yes, they really.
You're really under pressure, and
yes,
all the way like. Just, you have to be fast. Like,
yes, yeah. But the Amazons, of course, they give you this.
They're made for that.
Yeah, you know, there are these lights, there's these visual cues. When you go in there, there's going to be an Emmy. Then you hear the sound. The Emmy makes a sound. You know you have to be quiet. And once they find you, you have to run. And then you know you have to be fast. In Super Metroid, there's, for example, a sequence where you go down an elevator shaft and you don't know if you can go back up again. And then you fight an enemy, and only once you fought that enemy you can go back up. There is one sequence that's particularly brilliant where you fight off this huge dinosaur, and then you manage to back him off into lava, and he falls down into the lava, so you've beaten the boss. But then you go the other way, and then you realize, oh, you cannot go back from there. So you have to go back to the lava, and then this boss creeps out of the lava, and his skin has been burned off. So it's just the skeleton that's trying to get at you. And you think, oh no, he's coming back for me. And then the skeleton collapses. And this, for me, of course, I was not scared, but still, it was a cool, creepy moment in that sense. And I feel like Metroid, Super Metroid especially, has a lot of moments where they do this just naturally.
But also in Metroid Prime, I think I played a bit of Metroid Prime Remastered. You played almost through Metroid Prime from the Metroid Prime trilogy on the Wii. But
I played it on the Wii.
Doing a replay for Remastered, which is a great remaster. Only recommended.
It's probably one of the best games on the Switch, period.
Really, it is, yeah. I think the atmosphere in that one is also very, very well done, because there's all these different creatures, and then you also can scan the different things with the scan visor, and you realize, oh, either it was, as you already mentioned, Federation people that got killed, but also just signs of the space pirates, that they are active and searching for you, and there's different alarms.
Yeah. And
then when you find them, you don't find all of them, and it's different things that have very creepy elements.
The atmosphere itself is already very good in Metroid Prime. For example, in the intro sequence, you enter this pirate spaceship, and you can scan all these logbooks, and they tell you, oh, this part of the spaceship is contaminated, is the zone where they do the contaminations. And then you can see, okay, there is a biohazard breach on this zone. And then you go down there and you realize, okay, it's because the creatures they had caged up in there, they escaped. And if you scan more, you realize, okay, they performed the space pirates performed these experiments on these creatures. Now their DNA has mutated, and they weren't able to take the mutation, and they basically died from it. And it really enhances the feel of being immersed.
The whole scan visor gives you so much information that it really totally turns around the game in points of narrative too.
Yes, it's a very elegant solution. Like, for example, in Super Metroid, you do not have any narration. The first things you hear is the intro sequence, which is spoken, and then you have some scrolling text where you realize, okay, this was the story from the first two Metroid games, and then the game begins. And from that point on, the only text you ever read is when you enter a new area and you see it on your map. Okay, I've changed, now I'm in Norfair, now I'm somewhere else. But everything else there's no text, no dialogue in the game. There's no exposition. Everything that happens in the game is shown in the game, and it's almost never cutting you out. this is, I feel, very fruitful to the fact that they can make you be invested in the world, and then they can, of course, scare you as well. And in Metroid Prime, they do the same thing. But
just with more narrative storytelling.
They have the environmental storytelling where the story is, you can understand the story by just playing through the game and seeing what happens. But then you can also use the scan visor to gain more information and learn more backstory, which I think is the best of both worlds.
Metroid Prime 4 is coming on the 4th of December, and you played the demo when we went to Game City. You can check out everything about that and your experience and what we thought of the demo in our first episode of the Zac and Tav Podcast. Where do you think will Metroid Prime 4 fit? Is it part of that spooky game section? From what we've seen, they just dropped a trailer for the Survivors trailer, I think they called that too.
Well, Metroid Prime 3 was the game before that, and in Metroid Prime 3 you had less of that element because you had actually a lot of characters who were talking to you and giving you missions and assignments, and there was more exposition than in any other Metroid Prime game. But from what I've seen so far in Metroid Prime 4, it seems that you're stuck on an alien planet, and you're on your own. So I think they're already getting ready to give you some of that feeling again. But I cannot say anything at this point.
I think that's also a very substantial part of Metroid and Metroid Prime.
You're playing Samus, who is a woman in this super hyper advanced robot Chozo suit, in this alien mech suit, and there is no communication. I mean, you could just be talking to your spaceship computer all the time, like in other space video games, but you're not. Instead, you're on your own all the time, and there's complete silence. I've played through several Metroid games. I've never heard Samus talk at all, like mainly because I haven't played Other M, where they made her talk and give more of her backstory. But I think this is one of the core elements, what makes Metroid and Samus such an interesting main character for this game series.
Yeah.
Since this adds to the fact that you're alone, and it also makes you more suspenseful when you're exploring these worlds.
Yeah, definitely. I also thought the new trailer they published was really cool and got me really excited for the game.
Yeah, they showed off the huge new worlds and the fidelity of the Switch 2 version, as well as, of course, giving you this iconic Akira-style shot from where Samus is riding this bicycle, and then she's, of course, doing the slide. It's from a famous anime movie, Akira.
It's really, really cool, yeah. So yeah, you got something to look forward to with that.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, that would be really, really cool. We spoke about how spooky games don't have to be horror games, but horror games are normally spooky games. One of the games you started was Resident Evil Biohazard. I have never played a Resident Evil, but I remember you telling me that you started it and played a little bit of it, but what was your experience with that?
Yeah, my girlfriend wanted me to play that because she liked watching she likes watching let's plays of horror games, and I started playing it, and I am very, very scared playing through these sequences where you're getting chased through the house. Also, I do not like the feeling of not being in control, and a lot of horror games, they make you lose control of your character, and then you have to struggle. You have sequences where you're crawling across the floors, and of course Resident Evil is a game series that has done that a lot, and I will have to finish it at some point.
Yeah, no, that's very fun. They are also bringing out a Resident Evil, the 9 is Requiem, is coming day 1 on Switch 2 as on other platforms. It's pretty exciting because they're also dropping Biohazard and Village, Resident Evil 8. So you can pick that up if you're in the mood for some horror after Halloween now. They're also getting out a Resident Evil Requiem Switch 2 Pro Controller. The first Switch 2 themed Pro Controller that we're getting is not from Nintendo, it's from Capcom.
Have you seen it, the Pro Controller?
Yeah, I've seen it. I think it looks Pretty cool. It's a little bit disappointing that the texture isn't on the whole Pro Controller and only on the front pad.
But still, it's like a headline from a newspaper, and the headline is clipped because there is the Nintendo Switch logo in the middle, so you cannot even make out the whole
I do have
headline.
to say it's not spectacular, and if I would have to choose, I wouldn't pay the €10 extra just to get the special edition. But if you're a Resident Evil fan, that's a cool thing, I would say, to have.
I think it's very, very cool. Like the way what they did with the Pro Controller. I hope they do more interesting things with the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controllers. I found a lot of the Nintendo Switch 1 Pro Controllers to be very boring and not very adventurous. Just basically some prints on there. I would love to see some Nintendo Switch 2
I'm very excited
Pro Controllers
that are
have
high
crazy
quality.
or just, you know, being opaque. For example, it was a huge 90s thing to have opaque, see-through controllers where you could see the parts. You had that with the Game Boy Color, with the Game Boy originally, with the Nintendo 64, etc., etc.
Yeah, you have a Nintendo 2DS that is similar to that, right?
Yes, they did that for the Nintendo 2DS as well, for some editions.
Yeah, very cool. Well, that was our episode about spooky games, a week late, but it's still out.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and see you next time.
See you next time.